Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, welcome to London and to this webinar. DKUK showcase of a close shave, but at the same time taking the temperature on a specific industry and learning on employee engagement and cultural company culture. We are pleased to be organizing this event in joint collaboration with our Nordic colleagues from Norway and Finland, and welcome to everyone from there as well. Just a few house rules before we start. You may have noticed this webinar is being broadcast live and will be recorded. And all of you who are attending here today will automatically get this recording after a couple of hours in your email box with all the attachments. Talking about attachments, you will find there's some handouts available here. It's the presentations by our presenters on the webinar today, as well as a report and some extra material that the presenters will be talking out through the presentation. You also have plenty of options to ask them questions, and they like questions and comments, and please do use the questions functions to that. Already now, put your question in as soon as you have them. Don't hesitate. It'll take a few seconds for the questions to come through to us, so be a little bit patient, and I'll try to curate as many of these as possible as we can. And any comments you have, I'm really pleased to see that many of you already had some comments and questions in the chat functions. Use that too, and the panelists have already been good enough to respond back, so that is really great. With this, I would like to kick off and introduce you to the first presenter of the day, passing on to Mette Skovdahl, who is the director of A Close Shave, a Danish tech company, who is operational.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. As Gunnar mentioned, I'm the director of A Close Shave UK, and a big thank you to Gunnar and the DKUK Association for hosting this webinar. Are we overlapping, Gunnar? Just slightly.
Mette, can you hear us? Okay, I'm going to take back. There may be a little bit of a gremlin here in the system. When Mette, she is back online in a moment. There she is. I can see her camera is working again. Mette, can you hear us? Mette? Mette, you may have to restart your connection and get back online again, and that probably will do it. And if you take your share screen off, then I will run the presentation from my end, and that way save your broadband. So whilst you do that, I'll just briefly get ready on Mette's presentation in a moment. Of course, always happens a few things like this, and please bear with us, and we will have Mette online in a moment. This is a beginning of a series, I can say, of webinars that will happen over this autumn at various times, where we'll be focusing on how companies are doing, approaching new markets, learning from their lessons, learning about their successes, and at the same time have a representation of an expert, of a professional who can see it from a different perspective. And that's why we today also pleased to have Michael Tingsager, a long-standing member as well of DKUK, who has an expertise on the hospitality sector in particular. And over the autumn, we will have other companies, whether it's technology or whether it's more regular goods and services. Let's see what's happening with Mette. She's coming back online. I hear that there's maybe a Wi-Fi connection problem elsewhere, Jade. I hope you will get it through okay soon. While we wait for Mette to get back online, I'll put you on a holding slide, so you don't have to watch me, and then we will wait in suspense on Mette coming back, and we'll start in a moment. If she doesn't, I may ask her colleague Brian to get online in a few minutes to do the introduction as well. I'm sure he knows the story about a close shave well. So we'll wait a second, come back again. Bear with us. Thank you. So I see we are struggling to get Mette back, and I do apologize about this technology. But I understand from Brian you are okay to also do take it from here and touch wood the technology works. Brian, just for information, I have the presentation available here as well in case we need to save the bandwidth. Apparently there's some bandwidth issues across town today. So I would like here to introduce you briefly to Brian Fabricius, Sales Director of A Close Shave. And with that, can I hand it over to you, Brian, and touch wood, you will stay on here for a bit longer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gunnar. Sorry for the interruption. Sadly, my colleague Mette is having some problems. Sorry for that. My name is Brian, as said, and thank you for the introduction, Gunnar, and thank you for the invitation as well to join the webinar today. I'm the sales director of A Close Shave. We have a branch office in the UK, which my colleague Mette is heading. I'm situated here in Copenhagen, yes. Denmark. And we also have an office in Berlin that I'm taking care of. But really, that's not what I'm here to talk about today. More interesting talking about I can see that Mette is online, but then
okay, there we go.
Yes, thank you so much. So today's topic really, and what I wanna talk about is company culture. I think the recent pandemic that is, I know, still going on, indeed, has brought some attention to running a platform and running a company culture online in the digital world. So really taking it from the physical world as we know it into the online world and the digital world, and some of the complications that it brings to us as a company. Really, what is culture? I mean, it's a difficult topic because it's a lot of things actually. It's both, you know, being in a workplace. How do you having several outlets or stores, restaurants? How can you actually bring together all the different entities that you have in your company and still have a uniform culture? But it's also going from the physical world to a digital world, connecting people, even though people might not even see each other day to day or maybe never, because it's a big company. It brings some challenges to the company and how we run it. And really, that's what we specialize in here in A Close Shave and with our platform Academy. Which brings me to the topic, as you see on my screen here in the presentation. Deloitte actually made a big survey around the world with a lot of people attending, asking them the importance of culture, and also in specific talking about the company's success. 88% of the participants in this survey answered that they found it very, very important. And as you see, 84% have engaged and motivated employees. They see it as the top factor for success. So really, it's an important topic to be aware of as a company, and also invest some focus in how you can ensure that you have a strong culture, not only in the physical world but also online, because when we are online and we get digital, it actually requires something else from us as well. So talking more about a strong company culture, what is it really that we can do as a company? Well, it all begins with the strong company culture, and that enforces that we have a better communication, that we bring out communication to our employees, and our employees are enabled to have a communication in between as well. When we have a better communication, we know that we will also have some happy employees, because they feel informed. They might even feel involved in what's going on in the company, and it brings to them a better understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it as a company and where we're going. When we have happy employees, it brings higher engagement. Our employees will be more engaged in doing their job, feeling pride about their everyday job, and also spreading the word, you can say, of a good working place. That brings to us as a company a longer employment. And we know for one of the factors that is very highly cost or relates to a high cost is that when we're going to replace employees, that has a lot of cost to the company, not only losing the value of the information that the employee possesses itself, but also replacing them, looking, you know, for a new employee, onboarding them into the new job and everything. It actually has a huge cost for the company. So that's of great value as well. When we have employees that are employed for a longer time, it also brings to us as a company a brand ambassador. The pride that the employee feels, and talking about, you know, I've been working at this restaurant for 10 years. I feel it's a good working place. I have nice colleagues, and I'm pretty much happy about it. They bring it to the world and to their friends, and that affects our brand in the world around our company. That brings a better service, of course, with the engagement and the ambassadors to our customers. And when we bring good service to our customers, it also have a tendency to bring more sales. So really, that's what company culture is about, and what we can do about it, and how we can enforce it. So that was actually Mette's presentation. I'm just gonna say a few words about A Close Shave then. Well, we've been in the industry for 9 years. We specialize in our own self-developed platform. We also call it a social platform because we're highly inspired by Facebook and other social media where we can get together, but it's an internal use for the company itself. I'm sure that you're also aware that a lot of employees, friends, you might even yourself not be on Facebook anymore. I see that as a tendency coming in strong. A lot of people they might not even have been on Facebook having a profile, but a lot of people, especially the younger people, are leaving Facebook and hooking up on other social media. That brings a specific issue to the company using Facebook as a knowledge sharing platform that makes it very difficult. So really, to invest in a unique selling platform is also a topic of itself. And that's why we developed Academy now more than almost 10 years ago. And today we have more than 20,000 users in a lot of companies in mostly hospitality sector, but spread across several sectors and different companies. What we've seen from the platform, and again talking about culture, what it can bring is that when we bring focus to the employees, when we ensure that we have a better communication, we can also bring higher sales. On the platform, you can run campaigns and information, making sure that everybody is fit and proper for doing their job, so they feel secure in what they're doing and what they're presenting to the customer, you could say. And we actually see when we focus on a specific training on, let's say, customer service or selling more drinks to the guests, we actually see an increase of up to 40% just by focusing our communication in a one direction and very focused to our staff. And that brings us the higher sales. In total, it's numbers from 2019. We see more than 5.6 million logins divided across the 20,000 users. So it's actually quite a lot and a very active platform for the customers and the employees engaged on the platform. So Academy, I think we have a poll coming up here. I would like to learn a little more about you guys on the other side of the screen instead of just me talking. So maybe we can take a poll here. And while we wait, I see it's on the screen. I'll just give you a few seconds or a minute to answer the poll.
So the poll is up on the screen now. We will leave it here on the screen a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds or more, because it takes a little while to filter through. And I will take it off the screen, but it's still going to be active on all the viewers' screens in the top right corner. I'm just going to take it away, so maybe we can look at Brian instead, and then let him continue with the presentation, and give it a half a minute more, and I can reveal the poll when you're ready, Brian.
Lovely, sounds good. Thanks, Gunnar. Yeah, let me just, I think I'll return to my presentation then, and we will have the answer in a second. Yes, so talking more about Academy, well, just a few words about the techniques of it. Academy is, as I said, a social knowledge sharing platform. It's cloud-based, so it means it's a full-service system. We run all the techniques by a closed shape and making sure that it's available to the users. We do that through a cloud-based system. It's highly customizable, so we can customize it for your company. Means that you will, of course, have it as your own system, bringing to you your own logo and content, and of course, loading it with users. And of course, and I think very important, it's available on all devices, meaning that you can both access it from a browser-based system, like on a computer or even a Mac. And you can access it as a web app through an Apple iPhone or an Android-based phone like Samsung and Google and so on, Huawei or whatever you might use. So we don't have any limitations on hardware on accessing the system. And of course, that's very important because I think you probably also know that people have different ways of accessing a system and obtaining and different habits on obtaining information and so on. And we don't want to replace our employees' hardware with new phones and new computers and so on. So that's important to underline here. Maybe we can just have the results, Gunnar?
Yeah, here it is.
Good stuff.
How is that? Is that anything what you expected of a picture?
I can see for the moment.
So it should be on the screen in just a moment.
Now I see it. Thank you. Well, it looks to me that most of you are, or some of you at least, are familiar with e-learning or a training platform, and some of you actually haven't. And that was actually as I expected. I see that tendency a lot. Most of our customers are actually entering the world of an e-learning platform or just a communication platform like Academy for the very first time. And my colleague Mette and other colleagues that we have in the company are very experienced, that was the word, in onboarding customers, and that's some of the benefits or the specialities that we have in a closed shape as well. We know that some of you who might take the very first step into the digital world and with e-learning and a platform requires some guidance and some good onboarding, where we can be next to you and making sure that everything runs smooth. So that's actually some of the consultancy that you will get from us as well, engaging with the Academy platform. Good stuff. I think I will return to the presentation, just talking a little more about the functionalities.
Okay, will you share your screen again, please?
Yes.
Brian?
Like this. Thank you. So, yeah, the platform, it looks like this. This is, of course, as you saw before, this is the mobile version of it. And the web-based platform, or how it looks, is like this. Of course, you have different settings depending on which hardware you enter the system from. But you actually have the same functionality in both web-based and on mobile phone. Just briefly about Academy and the functionalities. It has different functionality, both, and I think most importantly, the knowledge sharing. Again, talking about the company culture being apart as different departments and colleagues spread across different cities. They might even be spread across different countries. It brings us together as a company and as colleagues on a common platform, making it possible to ensure and taking advantage of knowledge sharing. We have some employees that's been in the company for 10 years, and we have some new ones just joined recently. And there's really a huge benefit of making it available to them to do knowledge sharing on a platform like Academy. But also very important to talk about is training. And what I mean by training is actually e-learning. We can do small courses and making sure that our employees are well trained in hospitality sector. We can do on pre information about menus when we're gonna release a new menu or switch. It can be about wines, it can be about service, and it can even be internal processes that we want to train. How do you close the store and so on? So we can really train what you need to know on a daily basis to making sure that you're a success as an employee. Also, what's important to talk about is motivation. Obviously, having a platform doesn't mean that it's used for the employees, and that's where we specialize in gamification. In essence, gamification means that all activity on the system are rewarded with points. So you get points for logging in, for reading a news post, for taking a training course, for helping a colleague. You can also like and comment on everything in the system. And these points are then gathered together in groups by an algorithm automatically, and creating badges, saying that it creates a badge automatically for a colleague that is very active on the system, rewarding him and kind of, tapping him or her on the shoulder, saying, "Hey, you're doing great. Continue doing that. It's nice to have you around." So it's also about recognition in the company. I think I talked about the importance of culture, bringing people together, even they're not close in the physical world or geographically, so they can get to know a colleague, even though they're in a different city or just a different department. One of the functions on Academy is also onboarding. When talking about having a new people joining, we can ensure that people are getting up to speed fast, based on all the knowledge that we have on the system, of course. And we also have functionalities to create ambassadors and kind of motivate them as well. One of the benefits of the system is that you will get monitoring, who read the news post that you just shared a few days ago and who didn't. Based on that reporting, you can take actions, maybe go talk to the person that didn't read it or didn't log on to the system, having a chat with them, or you can then send out a message, a text, directly to their cell phone or their smartphone, and then by that nudging them to log on to the system. And part of the package, you also get sparring, feedback from us, from my very talented colleagues, Mette and others. We will always ensure that you have a go-to person within the company, within the close shave, that you can always call or mail or ask questions. And we will also bring to you some feedback on how you're using the system and how you can optimize that. That is also part of the package at a close shave. And as we see it, important to have success and have the very best out of the system. The last words that I'm going to say, and then I'm going to hand over to you, Michael, is that who are we working with? I know that most of these companies, I think to you, are not that familiar because it's mostly Danish companies, but we did actually just recently gain our very first customer in the UK. The formerly British Rail, I think now it's called Railroad Delivery Group, that we are building up a system for as we speak. But we also work with international clients like Bang & Olufsen, Sennheiser, Sony, and other brands. You can see the full list on most of our clients on our website, and also see how we will fit into your needs and what areas of expertise we have within the company already. The last words I'm just going to say is that if you feel like talking more about it or want to have a chat with me or my colleague Mette, don't hesitate to reach out and get in contact. You can always, you will have, as Gunnar said, the presentation afterwards, and you can download it. You can also find contact information on our website. I think that's all for me. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. And I'm looking forward to hear you, Michael, what you have to talk about.
Before we do that, Brian, we actually had a question. I think it'd be good to take now because it's directly relevant to your presentation. So we had a question from Monica Stock that asked, what is the number of typical users for an organization on e-learning platform as a percentage of total? Would you have any ideas, suggestions to that answer, Brian, or maybe Mette?
Absolutely, and thanks for asking that question, Monica. So I think in essence, I used to say that, you know, around 30 to 50 employees is a good number, and where you see the beginning needs of having a platform like Academy for knowledge sharing, for training, and so on. But I mean, like the biggest customers that we have more than 8,000 employees on the system. And obviously, Railroad Delivery Group, as I just spoke about, they will have a lot of employees on the system. But really, what's important to engage with the platform, I would say, is that you should have around 30 to 50 employees, and I think it creates a stronger story and a stronger use case if you have different departments that are separated from each other in different cities or in different corners of the same city, because we want to bring them together in an online platform, and that's really what Academy can do. So I hope that's answered to your question. Otherwise, just tap in.
I would for sure encourage Monica to come back either on the question or on the chat. But in the meantime, actually, that prompted Mart to ask a question down in the chat. What about the people in the analog space? This is all digital. Is there any way to engage them as well?
Yeah, well, thanks for that question, Mart. That's a difficult way of doing it. I'm not saying, and I'm not preaching to you guys that digital learning management and communication is a one-way street and the only thing you should do. because I think it's a combination. There's definitely some advantages of being online and being digital. You're not depending on being in a specific physical place at a specific time. So everything online is available 24/7. When you wake up, when you commute to work, when you go home, after you put your kids to bed, whatever, compared to when we communicate person to person or do training person to person. But I think we need a little of both, and that's actually why we also talk quite a lot about blended learning. And you can definitely benefit from that. But I will still say that you have a huge win on the digital world and engaging on a platform. But of course, there's a need for both, and that's what you in your company kind of have to find out what's the need, and that's also where we can guide you.
Okay. I think we move on. It's great to see that there are more questions coming back and responding to Brian's input here. Keep them coming. Either use the chat or use the questions. But moving on, and we're going to come back to the questions afterwards and open up the floor, if I may say so. Moving on, I will now present the next speaker, because one thing is to learn the whole thing from a technology space. The other thing is learning about the power of story and company culture and the importance to the actual business. Is why we then brought Michael Tingsager along. While I pan in on Michael, we've known for a number of years now. He's been very instrumental in the food industry, in particular the hospitality industry. So one thing I dare say today, he is a thought leader when it comes to being operating in the hospitality industry. But at the same time, he is a business owner and operator on various axes, and therefore he also experiences firsthand if something goes well or something goes less well or something is environmentally in fact affecting his business. So with this, I would let you, Michael, take the floor, unmute yourself and take it from here, please. And please let the questions come in again.
Thank you very much, Gunnar, for that very nice introduction. I'm super excited to be here, and maybe actually Mette, Brian, and Gunnar made a mistake to invite me, because this is one of the most impossible things for me to talk about. It's something I lived my whole life. It's something I love. I love to talk about hospitality, people, tech, and how we make the world better. So I know I only have 10 minutes, Gunnar, so I will, of course, as always, try to restrict myself to this.
Can I squeeze 2 more minutes out for you, please?
Okay, good. That's good. So just for people out there that don't know who I am, I'm Gunnar. He made a very nice introduction, made very short. I was born and raised in the hospitality industry. My mom and dad ran a number of restaurants back in the 80s. And as you can see at the slide, that's the past. That's my mom in the picture. And she learned me to trade from a very young age. And she had a number of businesses, as you can see here. And after that, I spent a number of years with a brand we probably all know, McDonald's, both in Denmark and the UK. I did everything from cleaning the toilets to be part of the decision tables in leadership teams, but in both countries. And also built a Danish cafe chain back in the early 2000s across Denmark, and ran the operations and people part of that. And then the last, I would say, almost 10 years, I've been operating as a consultant and trying from understand it from that point of the world. And also, as Gunnar says, being an operator. And one of the things I've been very passionate about since my early start of my career, and I think probably clarified as I walked through life, was that how do you build businesses that actually over time will outperform other business, no matter what happens. When I started out, we're understanding, how do I drive a better team than other leaders? How do I probably be competitive? How do I become the best leaders? And I found out actually one of the things was mirroring the good managers I worked with across in McDonald's, and actually learn from them and reading books and take education and so on. And that has become quite an obsession. And that's actually something what this presentation would look to. But also here you have the development goals of the United Nations that came out some years ago. At some point on my journey, I also became very aware that we cannot just build great companies that's great for profit and effectiveness and the employees. We also need to build companies that's actually doing something good for the world and actually making a difference, making a dent on the world. So that also, of course, have impacted my journey. And that takes us up to the world today, where I run two businesses. One of them is the thought leadership business and consultancy business called Hospitality Mavericks, and we work with a number of clients from some very corporate brands like McDonald's down to the individual small operator on the high street, trying to get their things over the line. And then I have my own business, which is a catering business, working in London, serving food into offices and teams there, and very built on the thinking about that, taking care of your people, the communities you're part, and the planet. And so probably a lot of my thinking and passions and ideas goes in execution of that, and thereby I have an ear on the ground, but also I am in the front line and understand the problems that the industry are facing. And on another note, to actually, being a student of this industry, it actually demands more than just being able to read what stands in the newspaper and being part of. Actually means you need to talk with a variety of people that's already doing great things. So a couple of years ago, I ventured out because I wanted to give something back to the industry. I wanted to make it better, and created a podcast. And this podcast and what I've learned through that is actually going to be very essential for the things we're going to be talking about today. Because we're going to be talking about how do we actually build businesses that tell stories and create cultures, and at the same time survive, especially these insane times, but also how do they use technology? And actually I've learned a lot of that. So a lot of the things you will see as we go through comes from this podcast, and you can always tune into that and find it on all the platforms you're listening to podcast on, because that's actually where I'm probably most informed from what is today, because you talk with the people that's dealing with the problems they're trying to solve within their organization. And funny enough, as Brian mentioned before, it actually often comes down to the challenge around communication or digitalisation, which is a big theme in hospitality right now. We'll come back to that, because we all know that we have the pandemic, and the pandemic came, and there was already, before the pandemic, there was already in the industry a lot of noise going on, a lot of challenges. And we could say that, if you just look at these challenges, rising costs, workforce, economic uncertainty, making technology work, having to participate in making the planet better, flat growth, dealing with consumer trust, just an exhaustion of brands and restaurants out there. It was overcrowded market space, and the margin was already very, very small. And then Brexit hit as well. So again, already you saw all these challenges before any pandemic hit. And you all know who was in trouble at that time. If you have not forgotten here, some of them, especially the casual dining sector, that was in problem. And some of them have then, during the pandemic, got into troubles again. And we are now in a, I would say, it's the make it or break it part of the industry, where we still see a lot of CVAs. We've probably seen a lot of people going to administration and CVAs the last couple of months. And I think we will see much more of that, unfortunately, in the coming months. And we've seen big brand Pret, the beloved brand Pret, is struggling and have to get rid of people. They have to restructure Costa. And there's no one that passes what's going on right now. So, of course, hospitality and travel is some of the most hit industries as we see it across. So the world tipped upside down for hospitality, and this is not just in hospitality, of course. It's the whole world where the whole thing tips upside down. But this crisis and lockdown we've been through, and of course it's killed already a lot of people and devastating businesses and making it very difficult for us to navigate as we did before. And but I think we'll never be the same, and I think we're already there. We'll never be the same as we were prior to this event. And we'll also see that, of course, hospitality will change radical. And if you're very close to hospitality, you can already see some movements going on. You can see new brands are coming in. old brands disappearing. There's always a massive shift going on. Even though hospitality have reopened, it's not the same industry that has reopened after that. And that's also mean that how we're gonna run and lead our businesses and the behaviors we will see coming out of this will change dramatically, even in hospitality. And I would say, if you are a bit radical, you would say that you would have this Marmite opinion that the industry probably needed that before this came. It was just happening very slow before this came. This was just a bit like an accelerator that's actually tipped everything on its head and actually left, you know, some brands very strong, or some restaurants, for that sake, independent restaurants very strong, and others, they're falling over the cliff right now, already gone. And you'll probably see more of that. There is a clean out, as they say. And the estimated guess is that 40 to 50%, that's also my guess, will not be here if we have this webinar in 12 to 18 months. There will either be new players or they will be transformed into something else. And of course, there's a lot happening right now. And I think the biggest trigger on this is what the government does. The UK government, and take the UK market, but governments in general in Europe. How long will they extend their furlough? Because that's the big thing. If the companies has to take these people back from furlough, you will see a tremendous change. And then if we take it from a UK perspective, we also have a hospitality industry that's very dependent on the activities in London. And we all know how that is right now. There's probably no activity and everybody's struggling in London. And I have a business in London, and we are crawling back, if I will not say. We are probably every straw we can pick out of this situation of positivity, we'll celebrate like we have actually, you know, we had achieved some insane results, because it's so hard right now to gain traction in London because the office workers and the tourists are not there. And then we have Brexit around the corner, and then we also have lack of investment into the industry because of the risk there is around, you know, investing in hospitality in the moment. Not at all, it's a difficult business to get work, but now also you will not have the same amount of traction coming through your businesses for many reasons for the pandemic brings. But we all know, and that's what it always comes down to, that profitability trumps everything. And that is what you need to build any great organization. Of course, culture will impact that a lot. But we can't have profitable businesses in the future in hospitality, because we didn't have a lot of them prior to the outbreak, and it was happening all over the world. It was not just in the UK and Europe. Profitability was a challenge. It was actually a challenge everywhere to actually make a profit in hospitality. Many were having very small margins they're operating on and living on credits and so on. And that's not a viable industry. So we actually have an opportunity here to build a profitable business that's good for the people that works in it, the communities is part of, and also, of course, in the end, the shareholder. But I think it really starts with that that we can't continue as we did before. This is not like of course we need to trim our costs, and I think we've gone through that phase now. We've trimmed all our costs, but we can't keep on squeezing the lemon as it is right now in the industry, because there's no more to squeeze in a way. We really need to reinvent how we do things in the industry. And that also comes down to, you know, how we build and grow our businesses and how we actually connect with our employees and the customers we are part of. And what is the solution then to this when I'm challenging all these things? I think it's about also a radical acceptance that we need to go from a more traditional mindset of industrial mindset to become a bit more engaging from the bottom up and not only the top up when it comes to building businesses. A new business paradigm for hospitality in itself. And yeah, that sounds, you know, maybe that sounds easy in the big words, but probably very difficult to execute. Yes, and I will agree with that. But we have to start, and there's already a lot of people out there that have started, because they are not put in the world just to be a restaurant business. They're put in the world to do good, infinitive good. And they look very different on how they set this business up. And it's not just about food. It's not just about serving customers. It's not just about the P&L. it's about thinking longer than tomorrow. It's about the impact we can do on a longer scale. So they don't set up to sell their business. They don't sell up to make a quick buck. They're actually in it for the long haul. And pre-pandemic, this is not something I found out during the pandemic. This is something I've been looking at for years. Which businesses are doing that, and who's actually thinking longer than tomorrow? And when you start looking for these traits and finding out, I actually found there were some typical businesses I think that will win after the pandemic. And they are circulating around 4 things. And one of them is that they are tech powered. They're powered by tech. They understand the power of digitalization. And Brian talked about all the advantages there is around tech and what it can do for your business. And they are focusing on multiple revenue streams. What you've seen in the pandemic, if you look to hospitality, is that how quickly some of these have actually developed extra revenue streams. Before, they maybe only had one. You could only sit down and enjoy a meal in a restaurant. Now they both do delivery, they do takeaway, they do retail products, they sell their suppliers' product on their website. Leon is a great example for that. Then they will also be experience-led, because now we are more hungrier than ever being through a pandemic. So if we go out or if we engage with a restaurant concept or restaurant, we're actually hungry for that human touch, that experience. So that's another thing they will probably work on, these type of companies that will survive and be here in the new now for a long time. And then there comes the most important ingredients, because all those 3 things can't be done if you don't have a stellar purpose and culture, and you're not culture driven. So what is actually your aim to be here? When I talk about purpose, is that bigger than just making a business? Because the business is just a vehicle to achieve the purpose in my world. And how do you then do that? That's how you build your culture. And then, of course, there's the commercial bits, as we started with, getting great tech, build an amazing experience, and get more than one revenue stream, so you're not vulnerable if another storm comes. And there will come another storm. That's proven through history. So the Mavericks, I call them, they are probably recession-proof. I don't think we can build businesses that are pandemic-proof, but we can definitely make businesses that are recession-proof. And lots of these businesses are not just in hospitality, but they're also outside hospitality. And the first time I found a business actually had these elements was Southwest Airlines. It's an American airline company. They don't serve many markets, but they're really good at what they do. So if you look them up and read stories about them, they are exceptionally great at employee and customer experience. And they have an insane culture. And if you look at their share price, it's gone up between 4 and 6% over the last 20 years. So there's no massive movement, but you win every year. They're very consistent in what you do. When it comes to hospitality business, of course, looked at what is it that they do. And it's not rocket science. And we'll say, oh, yeah, well, this is what we are focusing on. They understand that strong growth and profit starts at home. It starts with being able to create this amazing employee experience, or culture, call it that. And then when you get that right, you start to get a customer experience that people like and they want to have more of. So therefore, they come again and again, and they become loyal customers. And that grows into strong sales and then profitability over time. Because this is not a quick fix. This is, of course, a mindset. It's a way of living. It's a way of doing business. So it starts at the heart of the center of an organization, in their culture and the way they manage their beliefs around how they want to do business. And this slide, I will not go too in details with it. This is just some of the traits you will see inside these organizations. They will understand very clearly what they wanted to achieve. They have some very clear stories, both known by their employees and customers. And they also focusing on building a strong culture. Culture is actually in itself a department. There will be people working on this, not just be the people team. There will be specific people across the company working on creating this culture. This can happen in small as big companies. This is not only for big corporations. This is also seen in small companies. I'll come back with some examples. And in this environment we're in, I think it's very important to understand they are all using tech right now as the driver for better employee and customer experience. They were already on the journey, but they have really scaled this up, as we will come back to in a second. So who is doing that? that's always the interesting question. So in my world, some of these brands, some of them will be more known than others. Hard Rock Cafe is probably very known by people. Gale's Bakery in the UK. Then we have a business called Manju's. It's a little local Brighton business. They are, of me, an example of a maverick business that does most of these things, are working or having the intent to be a company like that. Because it's not about being perfect as well. It's also about having the intent here. Then you would have a company like Sticks and Sushi, a Danish company that's also a member of the DKUK, where Andreas Carlsen is the helm. Also very focusing on the culture bit, but also running the business with these elements, I think. And then the very famous Honest Burger that has been very successful and done some great things during the lockdown as well, where they only not have served their staff, but they also served their communities, helped hospitals getting food and so on. And you will see these traits going across these brands. So they use stories in a way to engage with us because we have an emotional connection to these brands, and either they all have their different things they're focused on, both internally but externally in the world. And just to give you a couple of examples, I mentioned Manju's. How have they actually been better at telling stories and building this culture? They have written a book of culture. So this book of behaviors and beliefs, you can call it as well, is their Bible, and they run their business with it, from how they make business decisions on suppliers, how they hire, and so on. And it's a very clear thing. Every customer can get a copy, every employee can get a copy. It's in their restaurant, or I think even it can be downloaded from their website. Then you had Honest Burger. They have something called the Honest Army, and that's the employees talking about how it is to be an employee at Honest Burger. And they talk about very open about things during the pandemic, and they were helping each other out and other people by getting jobs and so on. And then we have a totally other element. This is Rita on the right-hand corner. She is the ambassador, culture ambassador for Hard Rock Cafe. She was the first person they employed in London when Hard Rock Cafe opened back. And she traveled the world and talk about the Hard Rock culture and actually trains people and make them understand why they're doing what they're doing. So there's different ways of doing this, but they are very important for them. All these things are helping them to tell stories, these brands, both internally and externally, and that's the power of it. And in the world we live in today, where we have gone from the old analog world to a more digital world, there's a lot of things that's possible that wasn't before. And I think there has been a transformational shift the last 6 months, especially in hospitality, where we are maybe gone from only focusing on how can we actually get tech in that can help us either save time or make money, to actually have a long-term focusing on how can we actually communicate our story and culture better, and getting other kind of tools to help us, and maybe start asking this question, because that comes back to what I said before. We want to build businesses that does more than just make money, so actually that participate in the greater good of the world. We actually need to find out how we actually change behavior within our business, and how do we actually use technology when maybe sometimes some of our people are in the restaurant, we can talk with them, but sometimes maybe they are working remotely in some kind of warehouse selling out retail products. Maybe they are in a different place. Maybe there's so many things, maybes in all this. Maybe actually all our employees know how we're going to continue telling stories in the digital world, and how do we actually change behaviors within that. And I think still we have to remember, in hospitality, we are very far from other industries when it comes to digitalization. This is a survey by a very complicated slide. I'm not going into detail, but in principle, it says that hospitality is in the bottom when it comes to develop digital solutions, especially when it comes to the inside of the organization. And I think that's where hospitality have to focus now. How to actually, because hospitality has been very good at digitalizing the sales channels and the e-commerce side of things, you know, the way the customer can engage with the business. But how now do we actually use technology to actually get to the culture to live? Because I think if you haven't been able to be in contact with your culture during the lockdown as a hospitality business, you have a steep hill to climb if you already not have had ongoing dialogue and events with your people, because that's then the culture dies in a way if we not keep engaged. And we could get a second spike, so it's about getting ready for that. that actually when potentially we have to close down again, we need to be ready in many ways in the business. But one thing that's for certain is we definitely need to keep on telling our stories and cultures, because no pandemic can kill stories or ideas. A couple of last things I want to talk a bit about again is about this digitalization, because when I talk with people in hospitality and the challenges around going digital, it's often not implementing and getting the right tool in place, is actually connecting it with the whole business and the whole infrastructure of that. And there is definitely challenges with digital transformation. This, of course, is numbers before the pandemic, and maybe that the pandemic will happily change this, but actually a lot of businesses, and especially hospitality businesses I've been involved in, we get it implemented, but we never really, we can tick it off and say we've done it, that the technology is online and it's turned on and switched on, we have users on, but it doesn't really make any transformation. It doesn't change behavior. So I think, again, that's a very important question as well, for being aware about, well, where we have it implemented, that we also need to work on it. We need to maintain it, a bit like we have any other procedure in business. If you have your daily cash flow, you follow your daily cash flow every day and put in your numbers. The same comes to the digital thing, and thereby also your culture, if you want to explain. And I think there's like 3 phases. I've already said there's a pre-implementation. It's about finding the right solution. Then we talk a bit about the deployment and get it in and implement. And then there's the post, and I think that's the most important to stop up with, because how do we actually get this under the skin in the company? And Brian can maybe touch on this in a moment, because how do we actually, when you've implemented your technology platform, make sure that people actually stay engaged and on it? And how do we actually get that right? That's the big challenge still with technology, and especially in an industry where there's a lot of frontline, where being online maybe is not what you do most of the time. Maybe you're in direct contact with guests or employees. So how do we actually get that under the skin? That's always my biggest question when you go out and do these things. But that said, is that technology is the way forward to scale stories. But of course, before you can scale a story digital, you need to have a great story. And there are a lot of great stories and examples on the podcast of people doing this. Go in and have a check there. And remember, pandemic or no pandemic, technology or not, like no technology, it's always about putting your people first. So you always put your team first, and then the rest will come. Thank you.
Very good, Michael. And I think we could easily have continued. I think we should let maybe Brian answer the question you had to how do you keep people engaged once you have switched on the technology? Brian, do you want to give it a go?
Yeah, thank you, and very interesting, Michael. It was the first for me to hear you. I'm definitely gonna hook up on your podcast. It seems to me that that we have a lot of things in common. I totally agree. That's always the big task, to making sure that you as a company invest a huge amount of energy and resources into building a platform. And that's actually how and where we see that gamification is of great importance. We know from science, huge studies in the US and around the world have shown that 70% of all people across age, gender, and where they live in the world are motivated by gamification. So gamification, where you get points and you feel rewarded for your activity, for logging in, for sharing information, for obtaining information, that as a first motivates you to use a platform like Academy, but also making it possible for people to log on whenever they want to. You know, not enforcing them, starting with people first, but making it available for them to log on from their hardware, whatever they prefer to use, whether it's web-based or a mobile phone. You can log on to the system, find the information you need, and then log off again. we actually see in most of our retail customers that 60% of the time spent on the system is out of the opening hours. 60%. We tend to, I used to say that we have a user logged on to the system every hour of the day, even at night when people go home from, I can see even Friday night at 4:00 a.m. people log on to the system. But also making it fun to use the system, make small competitions, you know, just reward the employees with some small competitions, some gifts. It can be like having a pizza for lunch. It can be some tickets to the cinema. It can be a gift card, small presents. It doesn't cost a lot, but it's of great importance. People feel that their time and what they're doing on the system are, you know, being rewarded, and you really, as a leader, as a company, pay attention to them. That's some of the things. I have a huge catalog. I think we have more than 20 pages of ideas and so on, how you can motivate people to use the platform, because I agree that is a task of itself. But again, we have huge experience in the field, and we're happy to help and also to give feedback on how you can become a success with the system.
Very good, Brian. What I was thinking as well, there was one question that I noticed you, Mette, answered in the chat, but just for the benefit of others, Alan Jeffers asked, so how do your system compare to others? Would you have maybe a go at that, Mette, to explain to the wider audience, how do you compare to others, if there are others?
Yep.
I
Yeah, so what I replied in the comments as well is that there are, of course, a wide variety of systems on the market or platforms for e-learning or training or information. But what Academy does very well is combine all these things. The fact that we use gamification, bite-sized training, that sort of stuff, have strong onboarding, of course, helps with the training aspect, but also that we make it possible for companies to have a really strong information flow, not just going from the leaders to the people on the floor, but also the other way around. So everyone is seen as recognized on the system, and that we have good social interactions so people feel seen and that they feel connected to their colleagues, even especially now during the pandemic, that people are working from home or from remote locations. So I think the fact that our system kind of encompasses everything is one of our strongest selling points compared to some of our competitors. I hope that answers your questions. Otherwise, feel free to follow up with another one.
I think that was a very good stab at it. I know we're really pushing the edge of time here now, and need to let people move on to the thing. So I think we should try to wind it up here now with a big thank you to you all. It's great to hear that how you at A Close Shave, you landed your first real major UK client. Well done on that. It's amazing to follow from the sideline, and we hope that you will be able to tell more and tell us about your next customers in line. We for sure will be happy to shout about it. And Michael as well, even besides all the hardships that we hear, that you feel, or we can hear that already now there are people who are ready to move into this new era of doing business in the hospitality sector, even though it's going to be at the expense of some others, but maybe they wouldn't have survived in the first place, pandemic or not, over time. So just again, thank you very much for the panel. The presentations, they are available here for download on all of you who've been listening in, and all the ones who've been tuning in through the program, or maybe even post-event here. You will have access to these downloads through the link that you will have shared shortly after the presentation today. If there are any questions post-event, again, all of us of the organizers chamber, we're more than happy to help to facilitate the connections onwards to Mette, Brian, and Michael. For that sake, vice versa. That's why we're here in the first place. The next thing on the program is going to be next week. We're going to continue to look at some lessons and some learned, and we're actually going to take back to some very basics on a practical guide to IP fundamentals, the intellectual property rights. What are they all about? There are some who tend to forget them, some think they're not worth the while, and others think, actually they swear to it. And maybe even in this game, whether you're a tech firm or hospitality, it's about your story, and that is part of your IP as well, somewhere along the line, your narrative. So on this, let me just pan through the people. I'd like to thank you very much, Mette, for being here. I do apologize for the bad connection that we lost you, but I'm pleased to also see that Brian, he picked it up very well and continued. Thank you very much as well. And Michael, as the last one, thank you. You are a great storyteller. I'm sure there'll be several who will be tuning into your Hospitality Mavericks, and I've been listening to them myself. They are some very good presentations indeed, and very sought after as well. So on that, thank you very much all. Sorry for the overrun and slight technical problems, but I wish you all a good day, and we will see you again soon. Have a good day. Goodbye.